In this build along tutorial, we'll be building a bracket for the speed sensor for the SparkBot. After you've got FreeCAD open, begin by creating a new part in the part design workbench. Then in the tasks tab, create a new body, create a sketch, and we're going to do that on the XY plane. Click OK, and we're now in the Sketcher workbench. We're going to create a new rectangle, and we'll do that symmetric around the origin. We'll do that by clicking on the top left corner of the square, the bottom right hand corner of the square, clicking on the origin, and clicking on the constraint symmetric tool. We're going to make the height of this square 4 millimeters high, and we're going to set the length of this square to 32 millimeters. Our sketch is fully constrained, so we can close out of the Sketcher workbench. And we're going to pad this sketch out to 17 millimeters. The next thing that we need to do is create a couple of holes for the speed sensor. So we'll do that by clicking on the front face of our block and clicking on Create Sketch. We're going to create 2 holes. So grab the Create Hole Circle tool and just create 2 circles. And we're going to constrain both of these circles to the same plane. So left click in the center of both circles and come up to the constrain horizontal tool, and now both circles are locked to the same horizontal plane. We're going to set the diameters of both circles to be equal, so left click on the outside edge of both circles and then click the constrain equal tool, and then left click on one of the circles, and we're going to constrain the diameter to 3.2 millimeters. We're using 3 millimeter bolts to hold the speed sensor onto this bracket, and so 3.2 millimeters gives clearance for the threads on this bolt. We need to lock these circles into place on this block. Before we do that, though, we do need to set the distance between these circles. So we're going to left click in the center of both circles, and then we will constrain the horizontal distance between them to 21 millimeters. And now we're going to lock these circles into place with respect to the top edge of this block. So we're going to use the Create External Geometry tool, and we're going to click on the top edge of this block. This gives us a line segment that we can reference now. Left click in the center of the left circle, left click on the edge of the line segment, and we're going to constrain the horizontal distance to 5.5 millimeters. And we're going to constrain the distance from the center of the circle to the top of the block by left clicking in the center and left clicking the end of the line segment. We will set that distance to 3 millimeters. So now that our sketch is fully constrained, we can close out of the Sketcher workbench. We are going to create pockets, so make sure that you're clicked on that sketch. Create pocket. It's a 4 millimeter thick part, so 5 millimeters clears the part, no problem. And the next thing that we're going to do is create a step on the front of our block. So left click on the front face and click on Create Sketch. Now that we're back in the Sketcher workbench, we're going to reference the bottom edge of this block. So grab the External Geometry Reference tool, click the bottom edge of the block, and you will see when you hover over it, this dotted line indicating that we've referenced the bottom edge. Now going to grab the Create Rectangle tool, and I'm just going to drag out a rectangle at the bottom. I'm going to constrain this rectangle so that it is linked to the bottom edge of this block. So I'm going to click in the bottom left-hand corner of the square, click on the left-hand edge of that line segment, and I will constrain coincident there. And similarly, on the bottom right-hand corner of the square, I'll select that vertex, I'll click on the right-hand edge of that line segment, and I'll constrain coincident. So now our rectangle is locked to the bottom of our block. And the last thing that we're going to do is set the height of this rectangle to 8 millimeters. We're fully constrained, so we can close out of the Sketcher workbench. Let's pad this sketch out to 6 millimeters. And now we're going to add some cosmetic touches to this block. I'm going to fillet the top edge of the block and the edge of the step that we just created. Start with the top edge of the block. So click on that left edge there, hold down the control key on your keyboard, left click on the right edge. You now have two edges selected, and we're going to grab the fillet tool and we'll give it a 4mm fillet. We're going to do the same thing with the bottom edge of the step here. So left click on that bottom edge there, hold down the control key, left click on the right edge, and we'll fillet it with a 4mm fillet. Okay, now we need to create two through holes on this step so that the bracket can be screwed down to the SparkBot base platform. So we're going to click on the top of that step and we're going to create a new sketch. And we're going to reference the bottom edge of the step here in this view. So grab the external geometry reference tool, click on that bottom edge, and you will get that referenced line segment. We're going to create two holes. So create two circles. As we've done previously, we're going to click in the center of both these circles and we're going to constrain them to the same horizontal plane. So they both move in tandem. And this time we're not going to set a distance between these two circles because it's relatively arbitrary. So we're going to actually link these circles to this line segment we just referenced. Left click in the center of the left circle, left click on the left end of that line segment, and we are going to constrain them vertically here, and we'll do the same thing. Left click in that center of that circle, left click on the right edge of our line segment, and we will constrain that vertically. So now both these circles are locked to the ends of the line segment here. The last thing that we need to do is, second to last thing, we haven't yet set the diameter of the circles here. So let's make sure that the two circles are set to be equal to each other, and we will now select one of the circles, this left-hand circle, and we will constrain its diameter to 2.8mm. We're using 3mm screws, so 2.8mm holes will allow the threads of the screw to bite into the side of the hole. And now we need to lock the position of this hole with respect to our bottom edge here. So I'm going to left click in the center of that circle. I'm going to left click on the left hand edge of that line segment, and I will constrain the vertical distance to 3.5mm. And I didn't quite get that right. Let's try that again. 3.5mm. All right. So now we have the circles fully constrained, and we can close out of the Sketcher workbench. And we're going to pocket these holes so they go all the way through the step. And so that is an 8mm height. So set our length to 8mm and confirm, yes, we have cleared through the step. And the next thing that we need to do is on the other side of this bracket, we have to create a little clearance pocket so that the pins on the end or the outside of the speed sensor circuit board will not press up against the plastic edge and make it so that the speed sensor is not sitting perpendicular or square to the speed sensor disc. So we're going to click on this backside face here, and we'll create a new sketch. And we're going to reference two edges here. We're going to reference the top edge and the side edge. And we're going to create a rectangle here. And we're going to lock the top edge of the rectangle to the top edge of our block. So left click on that top left corner, left click on the line segment, and click on Constrain Coincident. And we're going to set the width of this pocket that we're making to 13.5mm. And we're going to set the height of this pocket to 7mm. And we're going to make sure that this pocket is in the center. Now we could just reference the z-axis because the z-axis is sitting right here in the middle, but we're going to reference this side edge here. And we'll do that by clicking the bottom left-hand corner of our square, and we'll click on the top edge of this line segment on the left-hand side, and we're going to constrain the horizontal distance there to 9.25 millimeters. And now our sketch is fully constrained, so we can close out of the Sketcher workbench, and we're going to set the pocket on this one to 2.3 millimeters, and that's a deep enough pocket to clear the backside pins on the speed sensor bracket, speed sensor. So we're done now, and we can move on.